Welcome back to the Cyber Resilience Brief, a Safe Breach podcast. Today, we're discussing TeamPCP. The FBI put out a flash this weekend on the 2nd of July, coordinated with CISA, naming a criminal group that's been trojanizing the security tools defenders actually rely on. Adrian, that's the part that stops me. They went after the protectors.
And Tova, that's exactly why this one's worth a full episode. This isn't nation-state espionage. It's financially motivated, extortion, a leak site, a whole criminal playbook, but the tradecraft is APT-grade. They've compromised Trivy, KICS, LiteLLM, and the Telnyx Python SDK. If you never heard of those, that's fine, but your dev team is very familiar with them.
Okay, so walk me through who benefits from thinking that that's a developer problem, not my problem.
Well, nobody benefits, frankly. Trivy and KICS have vulnerability in infrastructure as code scanners, security tools. LiteLLM sits in AI pipelines. If your CI/CD pipeline touches any of those or anything that depends on them, you're in the scope.
And the FBI's language here is unusually direct. They're calling this large scale. In that context, let's get into who TeamPCP actually is.
So let's start with the naming, and this is refreshingly simple compared to some of our nation-state episodes. The FBI just calls them TeamPCP, one name, one source, no alias soup to untangle.
No typhoon, no panda, no bear.
None of that, Tova. The attribution confidence is high in the sense that matters. This is a direct FBI statement coordinated with CISA, not a single vendor's hypothesis. What's interesting is the motive split. Nation-state actors want persistence and quiet. TeamPCP wants money. They're running a leak site, threatening to publish stolen data, classic double extortion. And eagle-eyed safe breach customers will notice we've got two TeamPCP scenarios. One's from a month ago. I can't go into too much detail about that, but we were a month ahead of the FBI.
But the method doesn't match a smash and grab extortion crew.
Exactly right. To get there, they're using supply chain tradecraft that wouldn't look out of place in a state-sponsored campaign. The flash even notes they've collaborated with actors from other threat groups, which tells you this isn't a lone crew. It's closer to an ecosystem player trading access and tooling with other criminal operations.
So we have a criminal group that's operating with an APT's patients.
That's the tension worth sitting with. Extortion crews are usually smash and grab, ransomware, encrypt, demand, move on. TeamPCP took the slow road. Get into the software supply chain, sit inside CI/CD pipelines, harvest credentials at scale, then monetize later through extortion. That's a more patient operating model than we usually see from a purely criminal outfit.
This is off script, but I have to ask this. Could it be that TeamPCP is actively learning from nation-state threat actors and its methodology? Do we know?
So that's the missing part of the attribution cycle at the moment, Tova, and partly how it came out to our radar a month ago. We're not certain yet whether there's actually, a bit like Scattered Spider, whether there's actually a nation-state sitting behind them pulling the strings, and that may turn out to be the case with deeper analysis over the coming months.
And we'll be right back.
Okay, so back to brass tacks for the moment while we figure that out. Who's actually in the blast radius here? Is this sector specific?
So not sector specific, it's layer specific. They're not targeting banks or hospitals directly. What they're targeting is the CI/CD pipeline itself, which means anyone using these tools inherits the exposure regardless of industry. That's actually scarier for a defender than a sector specific campaign, because there's no "we're not the target" comfort available. If you're a bank, a hospital, or a mid-sized software as a service company running any of these tools, you're equally in scope.
Yikes. All right, so let's get into how they actually did it.
So this starts as a classic supply chain compromise. MITRE ATT&CK calls it, rolls off the T1195.002, compromising the software supply chain. TeamPCP injected malicious code into legitimate packages. Trivy, KICS, LiteLLM, the Telnyx Python software developers kit. These got pulled automatically into enterprise CI/CD pipelines, so a trojanized update looks completely normal until it isn't.
Normal is the whole point. Nobody is suspicious of their vulnerability scanner updating.
Exactly. Once the update lands, it installs credential stealing malware and a persistent backdoor. The FBI flash doesn't name the specific backdoor mechanism, so I won't speculate on the technique. There's a gap in the public reporting, not something I'm going to fill in for anybody at the moment, but that may come in the future. What we do know publicly is the outcome: persistent access to developer environments and whatever those environments touch downstream.
Fair. Now, what about the malware itself? What are these tools actually doing once they're in the system?
So we have two named credential stealers, Tova. CanisterWorm goes after cloud access tokens, credentials, and API keys, specifically built for AWS, GCP, and Azure. And again, back to the MITRE names, that's T1552.005 in attack terms, unsecured credentials via cloud metadata. Then there's SANDCLOCK, which is more of a Swiss Army knife. AWS credentials, Kubernetes service account tokens, local environment variables, and cryptocurrency wallet data.
Kubernetes service account tokens. For the listener who isn't running a cluster, why does that one matter specifically here?
So, because those tokens are usually mounted as files inside every pod in a cluster, it's how workloads authenticate to the Kubernetes API. If SANDCLOCK gets one of those, it's not just stealing a credential, it's potentially getting a foothold to move around inside your entire container orchestration layer. That's T1552 credentials in files, but the blast radius is a lot bigger than just a stolen password.
And cryptocurrency wallet targeting. Now, this is something I know about because I used to work in cryptographic key security for wallets. But that feels almost old-fashioned. I mean, it's developed, but not that much over the last 10 years. When you compare that to what they're doing with cloud tokens, Kubernetes secrets, why is TeamPCP dealing with this here, besides for the fact that it's just money?
So, very important question, Tova, very, very perceptive of you. It's the tell that this is a criminal operation at the front end, not an espionage one. A nation-state actor generally doesn't care about your crypto wallet. TeamPCP is monetizing everything it touches. Cloud credentials for extortion leverage, wallet data for direct theft. It's opportunistic in a way that pure APT tradecraft usually isn't. However, remember our previous episodes from China, APT-41 is both nation state and out of hours criminal. So just because the front end is criminal doesn't mean there isn't a nation state connected to this.
I was about to say this also is reminding me of the episodes we did on North Korea, which have not been released yet, where they did similar things with cryptocurrency as well. But let's remove that possibility from this for a second. So far, this does sound like a serious but fairly conventional credential theft campaign. What makes it a full episode instead of a paragraph that we would give in a roundup?
Two things, Tova. First, there's a worm. Mini Shai-Hulud is self-replicating across NPM and PyPI simultaneously. It's not a one-time poison package. It propagates on its own across two of the biggest open source registries in existence. There's a variant called Miasma that does the same self-propagation, but also poisons configuration files as it spreads, which extends the persistence.
So that's a worm in open source package registries in 2026?
We've been here before with event stream and UA parser JavaScript, but the scale here is different. Cross-ecosystem, self-replicating, credential harvesting, all in one payload. The second thing that makes this a full episode, Tova, is how they got in the door in the first place. And this is the part I actually find very clever in a very unwelcome sense.
Go on.
TeamPCP took over legitimate NPM maintainer accounts by exploiting stale or expired recovery email domains. If a maintainer's recovery email was tied to a domain that's since lapsed, an attacker can re-register that domain and reset the account's password straight through the normal recovery flow. No exploit, no 0 day, just abandoned infrastructure and a patient attacker. That's technique 107, but it's account takeover through infrastructure decay rather than credential theft.
Now, Adrian, that's a genuinely uncomfortable finding because it means the maintainer did nothing wrong in the moment. The domain just expired years later.
That's exactly the uncomfortable part, Tova. And once they're publishing as a trusted maintainer, everything downstream trusts the update by default.
And we'll be right back.
So how do you actually spot this campaign inside your own environment? Is there anything you can point to that's concrete?
Yes, fortunately. And it's one of the more useful indicators in the whole flash. TeamPCP creates GitHub repositories named tpcp-docs and docs-tpcp using stolen credentials. These get used to stage exfiltrated data. That's technique 1567.001, exfiltration to a code repository, and it's a specific searchable signature. If either of those repo names shows up in your GitHub organization, that's not ambiguous. so search for it now.
Follow us for more cyber defender recipes. That's the type of specific actionable detail that this show exists for.
The infrastructure has a tell too, Tova. TeamPCP's command and control domains are typo squatting security vendors. Checkmarks.zone, scan.aquasecurity.org, with the deliberate misspelling. That's the 36005 masquerading paired with T107101 for the actual command and control traffic over standard web protocols. The idea is a security team glancing at outbound traffic sees something that looks vaguely like a familiar vendor and doesn't look twice.
So they're impersonating the industry that's supposed to be catching them.
Which circles back to the episode's whole premise, weaponizing the protectors, both the tools and now the brand names.
And Adrian, remind us why we are releasing this as a very special episode off-brand today on a Sunday, not on a Wednesday. What makes this urgent?
So, because the Flash is literally news right now. Issued on the 2nd of July, Flash 2026-070201, coordinated with CISA. The coordination matters. It means both agencies are aligned on the severity, not just one shop putting out a bulletin.
Now, I noticed that the Flash also names 4 CVEs. What do those tell us?
So at the moment, very honestly, Tova, not much, and I'd rather say that plainly than guess. The Flash lists CVE 2026-33634, 45321, 48027, and 2025-55182, without describing what any of them actually are. That's homework for the SOC teams who are listening. Go pull those records yourself before you brief your leadership on them. I'm not going to speculate on technique from a bare CVE number.
Right, that's fair. Not every gap needs to be filled with a guess.
It's just also professionally responsible, Tova, that the Flash is clear about what it knows and doesn't. We should be too.
Yeah, right. Adrian, does this connect to anything that we flagged before on this show?
It sits inside a pattern we've been watching all year. Attackers treating the security supply chain itself as the softest target because defenders trust their own tooling by default. This is the sharpest example of that pattern we've seen land in an FBI Flash so far.
We've already given SOC teams their homework. What else should our listeners actually do about this right now?
So 5 concrete things, all specific to this campaign, and this is not generic. First, pin every GitHub Actions workflow to a verified commit SHA hash. Not a version tag, not a branch reference, those float, and TeamPCP's whole entry point depends upon that floating trust.
Right, and that's a real engineering change, not just a policy memo.
It is practical security, and it's worth the friction. Second, go search your own GitHub organization right now for repositories named tpcp-docs or docs-tpcp. That takes 5 minutes with a binary answer.
And what about the account takeover angle?
So third, audit NPM and package registry maintainer accounts for stale or expired recovery email domains and require phishing-resistant multi-factor authentication on anyone with publishing access. That closes the exact door TPCP walked through.
Now, if TeamPCP already walked through that door, what do we do about the credential exposure? How do we prevent that element?
Exactly, Tova. Fourth, rotate every CICD secret, publishing token, and cloud credential that was accessible during your exposure window. Don't assume a credential is fine because you haven't seen it abused yet. Rotate everything. SANDCLOCK and CanisterWorm are built to harvest quietly.
So that's 4. What's the 5th?
Enforce a minimum package age threshold, something like 7 days, before any newly published package version gets pulled into your environment automatically. Most malicious versions get caught by the community within days. That window is exactly what TeamPCP is racing against, and it costs you almost nothing in development velocity.
Now, is there a way to actually know whether any of this would work against your own pipeline rather than just having the policy on paper?
So that's the honest gap that most organizations have. You can pin your actions to SHAs, rotate your secrets, but until you've actually exercised the chain, simulated a poison dependency pulling credentials off of a CI/CD runner, and watch whether your detection catches it, you're guessing.
Right. Don't trust, verify. Your test should not be testing whether the control exists. It's does it actually fire?
Right. The defenders I've worked with who take this seriously are running that exact validation against their own pipelines, not just checking that the policy document exists. It's the same principle whether you're using SafeBreach or anything else. Untested detection is a hope, not a control.
And we'll be right back.
It's a real hunting package. What's the single check you'd like to tell a SOC lead to run before they even finish listening to this episode?
Substantial for a single flash, 6 IP addresses, 13 typo squat and C2 domains, 26 file hashes, plus the 2 exfil repo names. That's a real hunting package. And the fastest win is the repo search. Query a GitHub organization again for tpcp-docs or docs-tpcp. Right now, it's a binary answer in 5 minutes, and it's the one indicator that's uniquely TeamPCP at the moment, rather than shared with other campaigns.
Well, Adrian, as we touched upon, this is a developing story. So what are we watching for on the horizon?
So, thank you, Tova. There is one more thing before we go. Watch the worm. Mini Shai-Hulud, and those of you who are deeper into threat will know that the June-based, that is a June science fiction novel reference, that has been tied in the past to Russian government intelligence. Mini Shai-Hulud and Miasma are currently confined to NPM and PyPI. The moment we see this self-propagation jump to a third ecosystem, RubyGems, Crates.io, Maven, that's the signal it's stopped being a two-registry problem and become a genuine cross-language supply chain worm. Myself and the team are watching for that very closely. And if it happens, there's a follow-up episode will be coming.
Of course, where there's CISA alerts and where there's updates, we'll be there. Adrian, thank you so much for walking us through this one, especially on the weekend.
Anytime, always glad to help out, Tova.
Thank you. And to our listeners, reminder, this is TeamPCP FBI Flash 2026-070201, weaponizing the very tools meant to protect us. Now, if you take one thing from this episode, go check your GitHub now for those repo names that we've mentioned. And we will have the link to the CISA alert and to our blog on this in the show notes. But in the meantime, listeners, stay safe. Stay safe with SafeBreach.
The Cyber Resilience Brief is a SafeBreach podcast. Executive produced by Adrian Culley and Tova Dvorin. Music produced by Sar Dresner. Hosted, edited, and compiled on Riverside. For more about SafeBreach and how you can validate your security controls across your entire IT infrastructure, visit us at www.safebreach.com. That's www.safebeach.com.